Hello? Is it on? Up, down, up. Can everybody take a seat, please? Is this loud enough? Yes, okay. Thank you all for coming today. It's really exciting to see everybody here. Today we are raising awareness about the foster youth population in San Luis Obispo County. Our goal for the afternoon is to brainstorm ways to support foster youth in all areas of their lives. We will hear from foster youth themselves, and they will share their experiences. We will also hear from agencies and community members about the ways they have found to support foster youth in San Luis Obispo County. We are also pleased to have the author of The Language of Flowers, Vanessa Deffenbaugh, here to share her vision in creating a supportive network for foster youth. The foster youth population has always been present in San Luis Obispo County. Through Cuesta College's Book of the Year, The Language of Flowers, we have had the opportunity to raise awareness and spotlight the emancipated foster youth population and continue the community discussion on how we collectively will support the population. Before we begin, I just wanted to review the things that were on your guys' seat. So we have a list of the presenters that will be sharing with us this afternoon. So we just have a little bio and contact information for them. We also have a 3x5 card. If you have any questions throughout the afternoon that you would like to ask the youth panel or anybody else, you can write them down. We have two people in the back, Cameron and Ashley, that will be walking around. So if you guys have those questions, please pass those up and then we'll be able to answer those. Lastly, we have a feedback sheet that we would like everybody to fill out before you leave that basically outlines what you gained from today and what ways you can support foster youth. So I would like to start the afternoon with a welcome from the president of Cuesta College, Dr. Gil Stork.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. It's 1 o'clock usually on a college campus is nap time or students are leaving, but it's very seldom that we get to gather people at all one place. But what better topic than to pull us all together, and that's the human need. You know, the human need for us as care providers to meet the needs of those in our community who are seeking care. This book this year, and I'll talk more about it this evening when I have the opportunity to introduce Vanessa, was extremely moving for myself and my wife since we were foster parents 36 years ago, because at that time there was only one foster family in San Luis Obispo. And my sister-in-law worked for the Department of Social Services in crisis intervention and made us aware of that. And with a name like Stork, we had 3 birth children at the time and thought, well, maybe our calling is to help kids in need. So we were licensed for 1 infant. And we got a call from my sister-in-law who said, we have a big problem. We've got these 2 infants who are 15 months old and 4 months old who have been displaced from their second foster family and need a place. And I said, well, you know, we're not licensed for 2. Well, about 6 hours later, we were licensed for 2. We had already done the cabinet modifications and the drawers and all that, so it's just getting another piece of paper and an act of blind faith in what we thought fostering was all about. It was really uncomfortable for me because our foster daughters, who were birth sisters, the older one who could talk, wanted to call me Daddy. And I felt really uncomfortable because I was not her daddy. I had 3 other children that called me Daddy. And since we were working with the birth family, the girls had a daddy. But my sister-in-law helped me realize that the word daddy or grandma or grandpa is a word that identifies a role within a family. And we have multiple grandmothers and multiple grandfathers, and sometimes we give them special names. But that really helped me get over that hump of how to engage with my foster daughters so that I was serving and giving them what my perception 36 years ago of what a daddy meant to a young child. Okay. Well, we weren't very good foster parents because we adopted those two little suckers and never got back into foster care again. But you know, everything that Vanessa wrote in her book, and I have to admit, I finished reading it last night driving back from Palm Desert, and I finished it at Pismo Beach because I knew I wanted to get to the end of the punchline. But it is all about what Vanessa did was she took all these experiences and put them into this one child, and I saw the older of my two daughters as Victoria many times, and as an adult now of 36, is still struggling with the need to be safe. And no matter what the extent of our loving family was, for some reason, at a very young age, and at an age when she was fully aware of being removed from homes, is that she really developed an attachment disorder which we were never able to overcome at this point. So my hope, and I'm glad I got to that end of the book because I learned about Hazel, and Hazel's all about reconciliation. So in my heart, even though there's a void now for that relationship, I have hope for reconciliation. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being willing to listen and learn more about both sides of the foster challenges, both as care providers and both as the recipients of that care. At this time, I'd like to introduce from the San Luis Obispo County Department of Social Services, the Assistant Director, Tracy Shiro. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. That was such a good description of what fostering is. And so as we go through our day-to-day, and for those of you who stay for the evening, you know, it will tug at your heart and it will tug at your struggles. And so I hope we think about that more. But thank you. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the role of child welfare services. For some of you, we used to be called, some of you still think we're called Child Protective Services. And we've really made a movement over the years to change that to be Child Welfare Services, to refer to ourselves as Child Welfare Services, and to be thought of as Child Welfare Services, to really become a resource in your community, in our community, to be thought of first in many ways, rather than to just be thought of as those people who come and take children. Because really what we want to do is work with families. We want to work with families to keep children in their homes, to keep them where that's where they're intended to be. And studies show that children do much better in their homes, even if those homes are a little bit dysfunctional. Really, show of hands who's willing to. How many have a family that probably is maybe a little bit dysfunctional? You know? I told my daughter once, there's fun in that word. It keeps us busy. It keeps things moving. You know, you're never bored. But, you know, so children really do better in their own homes. And our goal at Child Welfare Services is to really do everything we can to help families take care of their children, provide them with the safety and the supports that they need so that they can stay in their home with their parents. When it's not possible, when there are things that are happening in a home where that's just not possible, we look to other family members. We knock on grandma's doors and grandpa's doors. We ask children Where have you ever spent the night? Where did you have a sleepover? Where did you, do you have a sports that the coach is someone that you know? Who do you know? Do you have an auntie or an uncle? Do you have, does mommy have a mom? Who can we call where you might be able to stay? And our staff do an incredible job, just an incredible job. I have had stories of them stopping the police while parents are in the back of police cars to say, wait, where do you want your children to be? Where do you want them to stay? Because quite frankly, none of us believe that parents wake up in the morning and think, this is the day I'm really going to mess things up so much that my children are going to be taken away. So we do everything we can to have the family help us identify who those families might be and where children can stay. 53% of the children in our care are with what we call kin providers or non-related extended family members. I grew up in a home where I think we were the only nuclear family here in the United States. I grew up calling a lot of people auntie and uncle, and years later I found out, they're not my aunt and uncle? I didn't know that. So lots of us have families who are very important to us. They're adults who are important to us. And our staff do an incredible job of finding those homes and working with families for children to stay there. Sometimes we can't do that. Sometimes we can't find a family member who's willing to take children into their home, or they're not able to take children into their home. That's when we look to foster homes. We look to our community to provide the homes for foster care for the children in our care. We look for those who are willing to open their hearts and their homes. And it's difficult work. I say to foster parents, and I mean this wholeheartedly, because you do what you do as a foster parent, I get to do what I do. And at the end of the day, I go home, and foster parents are never done with their work. Those children are there, just like every parent. And foster parents in the room, how many foster parents do we have in the room? A few. I've seen you. Come on. Thank you. Thank you very much. Children are not placed in foster care because of anything they've done. Children are placed in foster care because of something their parents have done or failed to do. 64% of the children in our care in San Luis Obispo County have parents who are struggling with drug or alcohol addiction. 19% have parents with mental health issues. 17% have experienced domestic violence in their homes. These are children who have had a lot happen to them in their lives, in their homes. So when we look to foster homes, we're looking for a better situation for them, and we're looking for the community to help us help that family so children can be reunited. Our goal is always to reunite, if at all possible. We also strive to keep children together. So whether we have one child, 2 children, 3 children, 5 children. We've had as many as 8, and we've looked to keep them all together. I will share with you that when we had 8, we had 3 families of 8 all at once, because isn't that the way it always is? It just happens in cycles. Currently, 68% of our sibling groups are placed together. It's pretty good. 22% are placed with 1 or more siblings. However, they're not all together. And 10% of our siblings are placed separately. We just don't have enough homes who are able to take all sibling groups together. It's usually the larger groups that we have to split up. Of the children in our care in San Luis Obispo County, and we average somewhere between 300 and 350 at any given time, a third of those children are between the ages of 0 and 5. A third are between the ages of 6 and 12. And the other third are between the ages of 13 and 18. I don't currently have statistics for you of those children over 18 because that's new, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But about 40% of our teenagers emancipate to no one but themselves. So what that means is we haven't been able to secure permanency for them by the time they're 18 and they're out of the system. I don't know about you, but at 18 I still needed my mom, and I needed my family. And they do too. And so we look to the community. We look to the community for our youth, and then we look to the community for our youth who are 18 and older and here going to college, or those youth who want to go to college. We have an excellent community collaboration here. We are so fortunate in San Luis Obispo County. We collaborate incredibly well with Cuesta. I shared with Matthew Green that I did not list all of the programs and the things that Cuesta does for the children in our community or the young adults. We work closely with Probation, Family Care Network, Kinship Center, our county mental health, Transitions Mental Health, Aspiranet, Foster Parent Association, County Office of Education, each and every school in our school districts, County Drug and Alcohol Services, and we have Department of Social Services social workers who do just an incredibly phenomenal job. And sometimes those social workers end up as the only resource for a youth after they turn 18. I was at a meeting once, and it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and one of them was talking about what a great Thanksgiving they had. And I said, really, what'd you do for Thanksgiving? And they said, oh, we all went to so-and-so's house. And I said, oh, okay. It was a social worker's house, and she opened her door for them. We have programs called Transitional Age Youth Financial Assistance Program. I think our youth are going to speak about that a little bit. They call it TAFAP because acronyms are us. And that's a program where we put together in our county a program for youth who they apply for all of their grants and scholarships. They work together. They apply to us then to meet their gap, to meet the gap so that they can go to college. We started this in May of 2010. We have over 80 prior foster youth attending college, and some will graduate this May and June. Over 80. We have Quality Parenting Initiative. We're working very closely with our foster youth and our birth parents and our foster parents to say what's working in our foster system and what isn't. What can we do to provide and find better foster parents who are really ready for what's ahead of them so that the things that we heard about earlier are really known ahead of time before you become a foster parent. So we're working very hard on providing that for families so that they know what they're getting into and that we provide the support as they go along. But it's not enough. I think our youth will share with you later that they need more. All youth need more. We need permanence for them. We need homes who will take them in and claim them forever and a day. And some of you may be able to do that, or you know someone who's thinking about that. We would like more foster homes. We need more foster homes. But there's other things to do to help foster youth as well. Think about being a mentor, someone that foster youth can call and say, man, I'm really struggling in this class, or I just need someone to practice my French with. It won't be me. But I need someone to practice that with, or who can help me with my algebra? That won't be me either. I could help with other things. But we need someone who can mentor or just spend time with them, hear about what they're doing, help them when they don't know what to do. Be a phone call. Tutors. We have youth who need tutors. They need that help. Not just to talk about how that teacher makes them crazy, but about the work they're having to learn and what they can do. Or how about a host at the holidays? We have foster youth who are away at school, and in some schools they have to leave their dorms. They cannot stay. Some schools you can stay, some schools you can't. They have nowhere to go. So over the holidays they don't have anywhere to go. They can't stay at school. So a host over the holidays is another option. There are many options, many ways to help the foster youth in our community. I think our youth will talk with us about that in a little bit. You nodding your head? You're going to help me with that? Okay. And there's ways that we haven't thought of. So if there's something that you have, a skill, a strength, a gift that you want to provide, we're ready for it. We're ready, willing, and able to take that on. Cuesta works very closely with us, and if you have something to offer, we'll find a way to make that happen. And I appreciate your time. Thank you. It's now my privilege to introduce to you 4 youth. They amaze me. Can't wait for you to get to know them a little bit better. I've had the honor of speaking with a couple of them down in Long Beach. Actually, they spoke, I listened. It was wonderful. I'd like to introduce Vanessa. Vanessa is 21 years old and a Cuesta College student. I hope you've read their bios. In a few minutes, I'm going to bring up my replacement. Jess Lee is 21 years old and a former Hancock student and a current Cal Poly student. Oh, Amber. Amber wants my boss's job. She can have it any day. We're ready to hand it over. Amber is 19 and a Cuesta College student at the North County campus, so up in Paso. And Luke. I saw Luke. There's Luke. Luke is 18. Thank you. And a Cuesta College student. Thank you.
Hello. Hey. Well, good to know. So yeah.
Great. So we're going to help facilitate a conversation here with the youth. So we'll just ask the youth to briefly give just a little bit of information about yourself, kind of your experience in foster care and also your experience leaving foster care and where that has brought you today.
Okay. I would like to start off by saying each of us are former foster youth, and we all have different stories of what led us into foster care. And I don't know about the rest of them, but I could stay here all day and talk about me. But I would like to emphasize that in the community in general, there is kind of a stereotype about foster youth. And this stereotype is not necessarily good. And personally, I know that I was pretty resilient, and as for the rest of them, we're all college students. I am actually graduating Cal Poly. So with that stereotype, none of us were asked to be foster kids, but we were, unfortunately. And I remember being at Hancock, and I had a 3.8 GPA. And not only is that good for anyone, yeah, it's awesome for foster youth, but it annoyed me so much when people would say, wow, that's awesome for a foster kid. No, that's awesome for anybody. Okay, thank you. So I just remember being a foster kid and always having to justify, I'm a foster kid, but I'm also an A student, or I'm also working part-time while I'm taking 19 units. I worked 2 jobs most of my college career. So I just wanted everyone to know that not all foster kids are bad, and along with every stereotype there is, whether it's race, ethnicity, LGBT, foster youth are the same, and we can all be pretty resilient in the same way.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm currently a Cuesta College student, and I'm actually graduating in May after a long time. But I will be transferring to a 4-year university. There's quite a few I can apply to, and I actually applied to an internship in Washington, D.C. for the summer to work at the U.S. Capitol, and I find out Friday if I get it, so keep your fingers crossed, please. I'm really excited. But for my experience as a foster youth, it was, of course, hard, and like she said, we're all very resilient, but as pertaining to our community and Cuesta College specifically, coming into school when I just graduated high school, I'm 17, I'm still trying to figure out life and figure out how to live on my own and afford a house, and I'm 17 years old. I don't really have a whole lot of parental support to try and figure this out. I have the independent living program, but that parental support is key to get through life. So for me, coming to Cuesta, the first day I was terrified. I couldn't find parking. I didn't know that I had to have a parking pass. I didn't know where any of the classes, in my mind, this was the biggest campus in the world because I could not figure out where my classes were. So it was really difficult. I did have assistance from EOPS, the program here at Cuesta that helps you with a lot. You know, they have free printers, you can get books from them, borrow books from them. They have free tutoring, but the main part of it was that they give you vouchers. The price usually varied when I was in the program, but they give you a book voucher to go buy a book, which is important because, I mean, I spend $600-700 on books. That's how it is. My problem that I struggled with is that there's 2 lines for the vouchers, and I went to the regular line that everybody else was at, the big circle line with all the cashiers, and I was told you have to go to the other line. And I had all these books in my hands and all these supplies, and I had to pick them all back up my first semester, my first day, 17 years old, by myself, and walk to the other line while everybody watched me walk on my own to some separate line in the corner by myself. And that was probably the most humiliating thing as a foster youth on my own that I've ever been through. Having to pick up my stuff, I kept dropping stuff, having to pick up all my supplies and walk as all my peers behind me, new to the school, watched me walk separately by myself to a line that dealt with people that had vouchers or different ways of paying for books. And that was hard because I could hear people talking, and I kept looking behind me, and I saw people looking at me in this opposite weird little line in the corner of the bookstore. And that was probably at the point I realized that I am completely different from everybody else behind me, that everybody else has parents, that they have their parents' cards or they have money and they have $800 in cash on them to buy books, and I don't. So that was probably the hardest time for me at Cuesta, to try and adapt to a new environment and feel like I belonged on campus.
Hi, I'm Amber, and I go to Cuesta North County campus up in Paso, and I wanted to talk about counseling at Cuesta, especially in the North County. I graduated high school at 16, and so I went straight to Cuesta, and I didn't have parental support. I was 16, living on my own, having to figure out how to pay bills, go to school, pay for everything, still make it to work, still make it to school, and it was hard. I didn't have, parents to talk to or to go to in times of need, and so what does any 16-year-old girl think? Oh, I'm going to go to counseling. They're going to be able to answer all my questions. They're going to be able to help me. I've had the worst experience with Cuesta counseling, the worst experience, twice. And they have put me down and asked, because I've had to drop out. And I am not ashamed. I have had to pay bills. I have to keep a roof over my head. I have to keep myself showered, clothed. And unfortunately, money comes over school. And to have a counselor look down on you and tell you that you should not be in school until you're determined enough to do it, and why would you drop out, and why would you be here if you're going to drop out, and that's hard when you don't even ask why I dropped out. You don't ask the circumstances that I was going through at that time, just to get down on me because I dropped out. Like, it's already hard enough on myself that I have that on my record, that I have to know every day that I failed and I had to drop out. I don't need a counselor to point that in my face and make me feel worthless when everybody does it on a regular basis. So I don't need, to go to counseling to get help and support and be knocked down. And I have gone to counseling again at Cuesta within the last month, and I walked out of there thinking, okay, this time I'm going to be able to really talk about my major, really get into detail of exactly what classes I need to take to graduate as soon as possible. And somehow I walked out of there with a double major, and the lady didn't even tell me anything. She just handed me a sheet of paper and said, go turn this in. I look at it, all of a sudden I'm signing up for a double major. I had no idea. So, I've had 2 horrible experiences, and I would just like counseling services to be more aware of the situations and not to judge so much so quickly, and maybe ask, what were the circumstances of this, and, take a little bit more time and a little bit more personal, level would be nice, because it's, like I said, we don't have our parents and we don't have people to go to and turn to. So when you're 16 and even now at 19 going into a counseling office, I don't do it. I go to ILP, I turn to any other service that I possibly can, because I don't want ILP is not going to talk down to me. None of my caseworkers, they talk to you like an adult, one-on-one, personal level. They make you feel good, and going to counseling was not that experience at all. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Luke. And what is my experience as a foster youth? This is a difficult question for me to answer, not because I don't have an answer, not even because my story is personal, but because I don't want to be pitied. I am no different from anyone else here, yet I'm very different. Telling my story is not easy, so I will start at the end. 2 years ago, this court removed me from my mother, citing clear and convincing evidence of severe emotional abuse. The irony in my story is that my mother worked for Child Protective Services in Sacramento as an emergency response social worker for 15 years. Then she adopted 3 severely disabled children that she had, and then she had me through artificial insemination to help her care for these children. And that she left CPS when I was 6 to become a foster parent, taking in 34 foster children over a span of 10 years, adopting 1 of them. Now I'm a foster youth. This past year, I moved from Sacramento to San Luis Obispo to attend Cuesta. I have seen the system from 3 sides. Through my mother's vivid recounting of cases as a social worker, through caring for 34 foster children placed in my home, and through entering the system as a foster youth myself. My path into the foster system was in spite of, not because of, the Child Protective Services, which is equivalent to this county's child welfare services. From the day I was removed from my mother's home to the day the court found the allegations of abuse true was 10 months. 10 months that Child Protective Services refused to believe me, kept me isolated from my friends, and protected my mother, who was, after all, one of their own. When I entered the Child Protective Services system, I was removed from my high school and moved from hearing to hearing and placement to placement. I lost half of my sophomore year and half of my junior year. Unable to make up for the loss of education, I took the California High School Proficiency Exam to test out of high school. But not graduating with my senior class in high school meant that I could not enter a 4-year university as I'd hoped. Instead, I'm preparing for the university by attending Cuesta College. What do I want Cuesta and the community to know about foster youth? This question can best be answered by recounting an incident that occurred recently. 3 weeks ago, the Cuesta police took me into the station for questioning, believing that I had stolen a book from the bookstore because I did not have a receipt when I went to exchange it. The book had been provided to me by county financial aid. When the police officer learned that I was a foster youth, he asked, and I quote, "What were you in juvie for?" Now that you know my story, but you, like this police officer, might have assumed that because I'm a foster youth, I came from poverty. You might have assumed that I was raised without discipline or morals. You might have assumed that I was raised as a bad kid and that I'm now a delinquent, thrown into juvie. Many of my classmates, as well as many in the public, think these are universal truths about foster youth. But I am here to tell you otherwise. This is my story. We all have our own. One thing we foster youth all have in common is what we lack. We lack permanency. What do I mean? Permanency is the knowledge that if the world fails, that you still have a home, a family who loves you. No family's perfect, but no family is exactly what foster youth have. Thank you.
Wow. Excuse me. So getting started off of that, I see some teary eyes in the audience. I think that really gives a clear picture and a diverse picture about foster youth experience. And it's not the same for everybody. I think we have 4 diverse, special, unique people on stage with us today that have an experience that's different. And I think for us as Cuesta staff, as community members, that we need to stop and think about who these people are that are coming to our offices. Who are the people that we're serving? And I think we want to ask the youth, and it's not going to be a blanket answer of how do we serve them. Do they want to identify as a foster youth? Do they want to keep that to themselves? Do our services differ based off of them sharing that they are a foster youth? So if we could just ask the panel and whoever feels comfortable, would you guys feel comfortable being identified as a foster youth? Would you want somebody on the Cuesta campus to ask you that, or would you want to share that about yourself?
I think maybe it would help to kind of be identified as a foster youth. You don't want everybody in your class to know it, like have to sit there like, yeah, oh my God, her parents probably really suck. But that's not the case. We all have different stories, like she said, and we all have different situations. We just need certain services to be provided for us because we don't have parents to give us money for rent or for books or for tuition or for supplies. I feel like we need people to know, like counselors and administrators at the school need to know that we're foster youth so that we can get the services that we need to be successful. And I think that's what you have here about.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I personally would like to advocate for someone to specialize with foster youth on a college campus. I feel that going into college, I, like them, was 17. I didn't have anybody who knew the college, how to get around to college in general. I worked on all my classes by myself. Every time I went into the counseling department, they referred me to the website. There was just so much I didn't know, and I didn't find out about EOPS until my second year in college, and that could have been extremely helpful my entire first year. Being a foster youth, we don't have someone who's already gone through the process to support us and to be there for us. I had to figure out all my classes on my own, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was a foster child just because of where I am now, and less than 2% of foster kids go to college. And that's kind of the reason why I'm in college now. I want to make sure that that statistic raised, because that's a little ridiculous. Just because you were dealt a bad hand in life doesn't mean that's going to be your future. And I remember specifically in one of my classes, through EOPS, we get priority registration, and we were talking about foster youth. I'm in the psychology department, so we talk about foster youth every now and then. And someone says, well, I'm sure they get a lot from the state and that sort of thing. And I said, yeah, I mean, EOPS helps me out. We get priority registration. And this girl got so mad, and she said, well, why do you get to register before anyone, while we're fighting for classes? I've been in classes where there's 30 people waiting outside the door to try to wait list, and you're not going to be fighting with this 2% of foster kids that got the class before you. It was just kind of ridiculous, and it was offensive. And I feel that through awareness and through someone on the campus to actually help us, that statistic would raise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had probably a lot of negative feedback for the services that I receive from peers or from people that I know that know I get services such as TAFAP, the Transitional AIDS Youth Financial Assistance Program. It's so long. TAFAP is so much easier. But I've had a lot of negative feedback, like, oh, damn, I wish my parents would have put me in foster care. It's not fun. I've had a lot of people say that to me. I wish my parents would have put me in foster care. It's good luck. I want to watch you go through it and see what happens to you, because you will fail miserably. I want to see, let's see who's crying at the end of it. It's not easy. It's so hard. But somehow, I honestly have no idea how, but somehow all of us are up here talking about it, and he's talking about being looked down on just for not having a receipt. I mean, he's able to sit here and talk about it, and that is what foster youth are. We're so resilient and we're so strong, and I cannot tell you how. I have no idea how, but we are. I just feel like we're built that way. The way our parents may have raised us or the situations we are in just made us completely resilient and put us in a position where we felt like we had no choice. It's like, live or die, you choose one, and we obviously choose to live. We have no other choice. And the TAFAP program, I utilize that strongly. They will support me. They will help me pay for my rent and textbooks until I'm 24. I'm 21. That's 3 years. That's a long time. Even though this last 4 years has gone by quickly, this next 3 years, by 24, I'll be fine. I'll be able to pay my rent, but I can openly tell you that right now I can't do it. I work, and I speak a lot, and I go to school a lot, and this is my last year, so I'm really stressed out all the time. And I have a written calendar and a phone calendar. That's sad for a 21-year-old, but it's okay. The TAFAP program is so easy to utilize for foster youth. We are able to pay deposits, pay rent. If we need help for textbooks, even if I need $50 for bonds, if you provide a statement saying that, hey, I need this, you get it quickly. It takes about a week for me to get my rent check, and that's shorter than I have to work for it. That's going to work and actually doing labor. So for me, programs like TAFAP is really important because it gives me a chance to have a home and not have to find a group home or live with my grandparents or live on the streets, because I wouldn't really have a choice if TAFAP wasn't here. So.
Hi, I specifically want to touch about Casa because I was able to get a Casa, which is a court-appointed special advocate or social advocate. Yeah, there we go. And I was lucky enough to be able to have a Casa, and my story is very, very different. I did not have a place to go, and my Casa, she supported me in everything. She would, when I was having a bad day and I was gonna rip out my hair or somebody else's, she was the person that I called. She brought me, I'd be in school and freaking out, and she would come to the parking lot and calm me down, and just was a constant support. And through that, she was only my Casa for maybe 5 months, and I didn't have a place to go. I was going to be shipped off out of state to some group home, and that was going to be it. And she went above and beyond and did what she had to do, and she, in a matter of a week, 2 weeks, got the approval to become my foster parent. My social worker picked me up one Saturday and took me over to her house. Sorry. That was the best day of my life. Somebody fought for me. But somebody took the time out of their day, genuinely because they wanted to. And then after that, she took every day. And we still talk, we go to lunch. She pays my cell phone bill for me. It's just such an amazing experience that I was able to have through Casa. And now I have a mom. I get to call every day because of Casa. So I just want to express the importance of Casa in San Luis Obispo County to foster youth, because it makes a huge impact.
I receive some services from multiple places like TAFAP, and it's already been mentioned, ILP, and also a foster youth college counselor and DSPS. And DSPS stands for Disabled Students Programs and Services, and they act as advocates for students here at Cuesta College. They make sure that there's proper accommodations that are provided in the classroom and beyond the classroom. And I think that having someone like that, but for foster youth, that can be there and to support the foster youth and in the classroom, outside the classroom, make sure the accommodations are met, make sure that everything is just someone that's able to be here hands-on and be able to support the foster youth would be very important.
Great. Well, I think that gives us some good ideas, I think definitely for Cuesta staff. And I really think, it's any college campus. Obviously we're focusing on Cuesta, but Cal Poly, Hancock, those are our local colleges and community colleges that really need to take a stance and advocate for foster youth as well. Next, I would like to ask the panel, I know we've touched on it a little bit. Is there anything that the community, because we have a lot of community partners here as well today, is there anything that you identify as a personal need that you have or other foster youth experience that opening it up to community that could help you guys with any needs that you might have?
So I just want to really take the time right now to express the need for Casa volunteers, because I'm sitting next to two wonderful girls that grew up in San Luis Obispo County as well and did not receive Casa workers, even though that they wanted them and they requested for them. There's not enough Casa workers to go around for everybody. And if everybody could have the experience that I was able to have, my life changed, turned around for the better. I have so many goals, and I know where I'm going and where I want to be. And I mean, they're wonderful now, and I mean, but they could have used that extra support if it was available to them. So the more volunteers and the more people willing to give their time and help genuinely, it does affect us. And in a positive way, I'm living proof right now that it can do amazing things just to be a support system. So please, please, please volunteer and spread the word about Casa, because it is an amazing thing for foster youth and for foster children of all ages. Thank you.
Again, I would just like to say that someone working on campus who specializes in foster youth would be a huge support system. Just someone who knows, you know, what I need to do, where I can go for help. I personally get financial assistance through the Foster Parent Association, which, thank you, if anybody is in here. But I actually would have never heard about the Foster Parent Association without ILP and Katie telling me about it. So it would be helpful to have someone who just specializes in that sort of thing. And awareness. I mean, everyone in here could say, I met a foster youth and they were an awesome person and they're doing great things in their life. And who knows, just by telling someone that, how much it could change, because there is such a stigma around campus and around the community in general. And I'm a foster youth and I'm proud of it. So, help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the awareness thing. You can't know someone's a foster youth. You can know someone you can know if someone's black or white, but you can't tell. You don't go to a restaurant and serve somebody and say, "Hi, I'm a foster youth. Can I take your order?" You know, it's not. It doesn't work like that. You have to actually put yourself in positions where you volunteer and learn about foster youth and learn about their struggles and what they need. For me, I believe that foster youth need to become connected on campus. It's such a huge support system for me. Even being with these three people, it helps, because I can't talk to some of my friends maybe and tell them how disgusting my parents are sometimes because of how they are. You can't really tell them because some of my friends don't understand. Talking to other foster youth and telling them, you know, hey, yeah, my mom took my social security number. They get it. You know, they don't look down on me like, oh, that's so horrible. They can understand where I'm coming from. And to me, that's so huge in my success and in my happiness, and to be okay is to have people understand me. On campus, it's important to have people understand you so that they know how much harder it is to go to school than maybe other people, because we don't have parental support. So having that connection on campus of a place you can go maybe in between classes to talk to other foster youth, or knowing that there is more foster youth on campus than you know about now, learning that later, that there's other people you can text and connect with in between classes, maybe go grab lunch before you go to work or do something. Having somebody to talk to on campus or off, and knowing that there's a program provided so that we can connect as students together that have something in common, such as being a foster youth.
Foster kids have a past in shambles, so building a solid future through academic and internship is crucial. I have 2 requests for the community that will help these youth succeed in becoming fully incorporated members of society. My first request has to do with academic advocacy on the campus. My initial experience at Cuesta brought me instructors who challenged me academically yet cared about my success, as well as teachers who deliberately antagonized and seemed intent of securing failure. One teacher in particular has made it impossible for me to continue with my initial major. I was told by a counselor at Cuesta that I had little to no recourse in dealing with this unprofessional, arbitrary policies and outright hostile manner toward me. I refused to play a pity card by telling this professor that I was a foster youth, working against my challenges to succeed. He should treat me no differently than he would anybody else. But foster youth need an on-campus advocate. We need an advocate to help provide us with support, encouragement, hands-on guidance. We have no family to encourage and empower us, to guide us and galvanize us. We have just our own desires to make something out of our futures. We must rely on our own resilience to go against the odds. Every day is a fight for our future. In the classroom, we should not have to be defeated by professors for whom teaching has become a paycheck and students just a nuisance. My second request has to do with business opportunities. Foster youth often lack the parental models that stable, responsible families provide, and the connections with the community that these families establish. While other children watch their parents build satisfying careers, or at least become gainfully employed, abused or neglected youth often wake to find parents unwilling or unable to work, often beset with emotional problems of their own, drug addicts or alcoholics, lacking education and ambition, and isolated from a professional community. In my own case, although, I came from a middle-class home with an educated single parent. And yes, abuse crosses the threshold of every income and educational level. My mother's mental illness created a living hell for me and my siblings. For 10 years, I watched her collect money from the government as a foster parent, using the system rather than remaining gainfully employed. As foster youth without the example set by parents, without a connection to the business community, with fragmented childhoods and placement after placement, we often enter college, if we enter college at all, groping to understand how to connect with businesses for internships, how to explore career paths, how to land that first job. It's no secret that the best business advice is this: the surest way into internship or employment is through someone who you know. The one internship I was able to secure resulted from a friend asking a friend to take me on. Those of you who are business owners, I ask that you reach out to those in the foster system, recognizing that we have no moorings, no connections, no advocates helping us open doors to our careers. And I have a perhaps surprising message for you. Those foster youth who are reaching out for those internships or have jobs have already proven themselves to be responsible, determined, and committed to their future. You might find that they are, at the best, interns or employees you will ever have. Whether an internship specifically offered to foster youth through San Luis Obispo's ILP, or simply posting a job opening in your business with ILP, your involvement with foster youth is greatly needed. I'd like to close by thanking Cuesta College and San Luis Obispo's ILP for giving me this opportunity to tell my story and to speak for foster youth in this county.
Thank you all for sharing. If you guys do have any questions, those 3x5 cards you can write down, and we'll have questions towards the end. I just wanted to wrap up the youth panel to really identify the underlying theme here is permanency, is really what's lacking, which is difficult for a system of care to provide. Child welfare probation can provide safety and food and shelter, but it's very difficult for a system to create relationships, and relationships that sustain over a period of time, of a lifetime. And I really ask that we take the commitment today to say that that matters. I think through the stories that the youth have shared, that that matters to them. And I think it's really important for us to finally identify that that matters to us as a community, as a college, that we are going to identify steps to succeed. So next, moving on to the community panel. We introduced her briefly, but now we would like to introduce the author of Cuesta College's Book of the Year, Vanessa Deffenbaugh, to speak about the Camellia Network.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, I was hoping you would stay. I need the moral support. Thank you. So my name is Vanessa Deffenbaugh, and I was a foster parent in Sacramento, and I wish I could say that Luke's story surprised me, but Sacramento County specifically has had a really, 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 really horrible decade or 2 or 3. And really one of the main inspirations for me writing The Language of Flowers was because I felt like the story of foster care as I understood it as a foster parent, and of course that's just one story, was really different from what I was hearing in the media. In Sacramento, you had the foster parents who were abusing and neglecting children, often to the point of death. I think they had more child deaths in Sacramento County than anywhere else in the state. Or you had The Blind Side, which was like this wonderful feel-good movie with Sandra Bullock, and she's fabulously rich and gorgeous and talented and funny and perfect, and her foster son grows up to be a professional football player, right? And to me, there's so much more to that story, and I'll talk about my novel more tonight, but what I was really asked to speak about just for a few minutes today is Camellia Network, which is the organization I co-founded with my dear friend Isis Kegwin. And the nonprofit Camellia Network really came out of the novel. Camellia in the language of flowers means my destiny is in your hands. And obviously, young people that are leaving a system at 18 with very little support, their destiny really is in our hands as a community. But we named it that really for the opposite reason, which is that I believe that the destiny of our society is in the hands of the youngest citizens, and it's up to us to support them to fulfill their own destiny. So we started Camellia Network really because my book was met with this very, very, very surprising success. I wasn't expecting it at all as a stay-at-home mom of 4. But it sold in over 40 translations around the world. At auction in New York, and I had people wanting me to come speak all over and talk about foster care. And what I heard over and over and over again was, first, people would say to me, I didn't know this was happening. And they'd say, please tell me it's not actually happening anymore, right? You know, they'd say, at 18 in our country now, we have kids, you know, they have families or they have somewhere to go, right? And that's really not true in most communities, and it sounds like San Luis Obispo actually has a lot more programs than most places, which is inspiring. So I was hearing, you know, I didn't know this was happening, and then I was hearing, what can I do specifically? Tell me right now, at this moment, what can I do to help? And I looked around the country, and some communities have fabulous nonprofits. Casa is absolutely one of my favorites as well. Or if you're willing to adopt a child, as the president did, which is so inspiring, or be a foster parent, you know, those are sort of the obvious things. But being a foster parent, as you said, is a very intense job. Not a lot of people have the time or energy for that. Being a CASA is also a very intense job, but I think you got that from Amber's story. So my friend Isis and I really put our heads together and thought, what can we tell people to do? You know, we need a system in place nationally that says, here is this young person with this very specific need, and here is this adult with plenty to give. You know, I had book clubs all over the country saying, can we please, you know, tell us what to do? So while this was happening, my mother, who's here today as part of this story, she came from Chico with my dad. My husband was principal of Sacramento High School. And we had lots of foster youth there, and we knew who everyone was, and we were trying to help them get to college. And one of these young people, Tyrone, had gotten a full-ride scholarship to Chico State. And I saw Tyrone, and I said, congratulations, you know, that's fantastic. And he said, what are you talking about? I'm not going. And I was like, of course you're going. You know, tell me exactly what you need, and you're going. So it turned out he emancipated in July. The dorms opened in August. He was going to be homeless for a month. He didn't have a ride. Sacramento's only 2 hours from Chico, but he also didn't have enough money for bus fare. So here were these problems that if you're me and, you know, you have plenty of friends with jobs and connections, like all of these are solvable. And if you're Tyrone and you don't know who to call, none of them are solvable. So I called my mom, who lives in Chico, and I told her the problem, and she called the Chico Women's Club, and basically this entire community of women stood up to make sure we got him to Chico. We called the dorms to get him an early move-in date. They dropped off bags of groceries until the dorm food opened. Easy. And it wasn't too much for one person to do because we were all chipping in. So we basically, this was sort of the inspiration for Camellia Network, and we thought, what if we can create a network using technology where we can identify who these young people are and exactly what they need to be successful, and then we recruit hundreds of thousands of people across the country to give just a little bit. and hope that it's that little bit is the right amount. And sometimes it's huge things. You know, we all need emotional support. We all need someone we can call when we're completely down. But also, so many little things are derailing our young people. She was right that less than 3% are graduating from four-year universities. And I have a great story with my own son, Trayvon, who we took in as a freshman. He's now at NYU, doing very well, knock on wood. He's a junior, but his freshman year, he was home for the holidays. He missed his plane ticket home back to college by 2 days, which means they cancel it. And if you're a foster kid with no one to call, that's the kind of thing where all of a sudden you're not an NYU student anymore because you don't have $500. So that's the kind of thing Camellia Network's trying to do. And right now we're in about 11 states. We have about 120 young people. There are young people from San Luis Obispo. We sort by state because we're trying to keep things super, super safe. But just a few quick stories. One young woman was affected by Hurricane Sandy, and she had a profile. So what people are doing on the sites is they're creating profiles, so they're basically just registering things like you would for a wedding or a baby shower. But they also can create profiles, and supporters can create profiles, so you can be on the site encouraging kids, answering questions, just being that support person even though it's online. You know, kids are on their phone online all the time, so it's a great way to deliver support to this generation. So just a few quick stories I'll share. One young woman was affected by Hurricane Sandy. These 15 people that had supported her getting her registry of things for college reached out to her and said, hey, are you okay? How are you doing in the storm? Her entire basement apartment had been flooded. We registered her again for a new mattress, all the things she needed. Within 2 weeks, she had everything delivered. And she could continue going to community college because she didn't have to worry about not having a place to sleep that night. Another story I have is more on the emotional support side. One of our young women in New York also had a baby with a heart condition, and she was in the hospital with the baby who was having open heart surgery, and she was on our website every 5 minutes updating her group of 25 supporters how the baby was doing, and they were checking in, and everyone was praying for her. And this was a woman who'd been in foster care her whole life, had emancipated with no one, and suddenly she had this group of people in the world that cared about her and the health of her baby. And it was really amazing to watch how that connection could really be made and really matter, even though it's just through technology. And the last very quick story that I'll share is just another one of those really simple things. I had someone in California who wanted to do California Conservation Corps, and all he needed was those like $100 pair of boots, you know? And he was not going to do the program, and it was another one of my husband's students. And we were able to get him all his uniforms and all his outfits, and now he's 2 years into the program and doing amazing. So sometimes it's huge things. Sometimes kids really just need to be adopted. Sometimes it's those little hurdles that if we all work together, we can help kids get over. So we're a young organization. We're 6 months old. My husband and I donated the advance of my book to get it off the ground, and we're basically at the point where we want to scale it, and we desperately need people to believe in the vision, to step forward and help us grow to scale and fund it. So if you guys know anyone, I'll be around all day. Thank you.
And she will be around all day. She does the author lecture this evening from 5 to 7 in the PAC here at Cuesta. So if you're wanting to hear more from Vanessa, she'll also be signing books as well. Please come to that. So next I would like to introduce Holly Prieto, who's a social worker at the Department of Social Services and a foster parent recruiter.
Okay, I don't prepare speeches. I just speak. I'm really excited to be able to be the recruiter for our county of San Luis Obispo. And I never look at anything at our department like it's a job. I always look at it like a privilege. We are in need of foster homes. And the funny thing is people always say, do you need foster homes? We don't hear about it. We'll never have enough foster homes because we're never looking at quantity, we're looking at quality. So the difference for youth like this is going to be, is that the best place for them to be? Can they stay in their senior year of high school in this foster home? And if we have a choice between two, we're going to pick the one that's going to be the best for them. If we don't have enough, we don't have that choice. So we are currently working a lot on expanding our licensing process to make the classes really user-friendly, looking at our youth and seeing what their needs are and recruiting from that point. I get excited when I meet new foster parents because I'm always looking at, would I want my own kids to be in there if they had to be? I mean, that's kind of how I look at people. There are some foster parents that I've asked, do you want to adopt me? Potentially, I could need that someday. And that's the relationship that we build with them. So it's very important to have that relationship. We're always needing foster parents. We are now expanding with the AB 12 all the way to 21 because when the youth do leave high school, they're not done. They do need that support. So our homes now we're asking to go all the way up to that age. We also run a program called Options for Recovery, and that's the 0 to 5 range of drug-affected youth. That's a very specialized program of foster parents that we're always looking to expand that more and get more foster parents. Currently, our biggest project has been commercials on KSBY. We just launched on Monday a whole series of commercials recruiting foster parents. So watch for that. It's very exciting. In the back, we have a sign up if you're interested in being a foster parent, and we also have flyers just talking about what our need is. So please feel free to grab that. My number's on there. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And we are going to introduce some of our foster parents that are going to come up and speak, Vicki McPartland and Terry Elfrink.
Hi. Terry and I are part of the OFR program that Holly spoke about. So we're coming from a little different angle in that we are with the youth. We take babies that are from 0 to 5 that have been, our kids have been drug exposed, but we mentor the families while they work at getting their place together where they can get their children back. But I just thought I'd share 2 stories of 2 incredible teens that I've had experiences with. One that started the wheels turning for me to become a foster parent. I worked with AmeriCorps, and I know there's some AmeriCorps people here, probably about 15 years ago, and I was at TAP at Lopez High. And my role there was to, I had 10 kids on my caseload. They were all teens. They were all either parents or pregnant, and my job was to help them with parenting skills as well as get them to graduate high school. So for those of you that have been parents, to try and imagine getting through school when you have a baby is pretty daunting, and it was a daunting task for me to be a part of that. But one young woman in particular had been a foster child since she was an infant. I think our county's done an amazing job of not throwing kids from home to home to home. But she had been, I think she had said, in 14 homes. She was 16 years old when I met her, and she was 3 months pregnant. And couldn't wait to have this baby because, as very typical, she couldn't wait to have somebody to love and somebody to love her. She sabotaged every placement that she was in, and the father of her child was a gang member who was in and out of prison. He was older. And she had no one, and she wasn't the most likable, but I happened to like her. We became great friends. I was able to help her with a lot of things. The Camellia Network would have been a fabulous a thing for her at the time, but I was the only one there when she had her baby, and it still makes me a little sick, but she couldn't make it. She's in jail now. Her son's in the foster care system, and nobody's there for her. I could only be as much as I could, but she wasn't really looking to improve herself. She said jail was the only place where she felt safe and she felt liked, and her people were there. So, but it certainly got me thinking about becoming a foster parent. And I worked with Casa for quite a while, and I couldn't agree with you more. They're incredible. The first story that I just told you about, she had no Casa. So now we're part of the foster care system, and we become foster parents, and there's a foster care network, and we give scholarships to foster care youth that are ready to go to college, and sadly there's very few applications. But a few years ago, we're going through applications, and we award 3. And one gal, I wasn't the greatest teen myself, and I was pretty good at putting the wool over people's eyes. And I'm reading her application, and it's just too good to be true. We award her an application, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's incredible. And I'm thinking, she is incredible because she has, really stocked this thing and made us believe it. I happen to know who in her application who her high school counselor was. And, she said she had had this job here, and she played on the softball team, and she was in this organization and that organization, and blah, 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 and in the ILP program. So I thought, I'm going to track down her high school counselor and sort of get the story straight. Well, it turned out she rocks. I mean, she was all these things. And, I felt a little bad, and I got over it. But... So, she was in the she went right from, she had a history of not being believed, as your story was. So she had gone through a lot of trauma as a youth. I think she was 14 when she went into foster care. She pretty quickly went into ILP, and she is incredibly resourceful. And so we had arranged through the high school counselor if she'd be willing to meet Terry and I. And because we really wanted to meet her after seeing her on paper. And we did, and we had lunch with her. We became friends with her. She had got herself into college, and it was the end of the school year before she was going to college. Had no idea how she was getting there. The thought of getting sheets that fit a long bed, it wasn't even something she cared about. She just was ready to go to college. And so Terry and I kind of became her, I kind of call it Santa Claus / mentor, because I think she's given us as much as we've given her, so I don't know really who's mentoring who, but, we took her shopping. We had one of our little foster sons at the time, and so they became little buddies, and so he and I took her shopping for her sheets and, everything that we would want to do with our own kids to college. And so we stay in touch with her. This is her second year. She's doing incredibly well. And when I asked her, what do you owe it to? How do you move forward? And she said, because I never look back. She said, looking back is what drags her down. And she always looks forward. And if you keep a negative attitude, you stay in that. I mean, she's just amazing. I wish she could speak to you. But, yeah, and so now we foster babies in hopes that we prevent something that's happening that we hear here. And thank you all for being a part of it in some way. Yeah.
Holly, as usual, took all the thunder out of my little spiel. So thank you, Holly, wherever you are. Having been in the high school administration and middle school administration for 30-some years, I had a lot of foster children coming through the programs at our schools, and it was very frustrating because there just weren't the resources available to them. Middle school, it's kind of pat them on the head and be working with the foster parents, and that's about it. There's no anticipation of what then high school and then the potential either career or college. We have 2 or 3% going to college. The 98 other percent needs to be dealt with also. How do we bridge that gap and allow them to have good work and career skills besides the actual skill set to do it, but how do you actually get into getting a job and being available for that opportunity? High school, I have to say, in this county and particularly in this particular district I was in, we've made huge inroads in the last 15 or 20 years. 15 years ago, there was nothing. The minute a child emancipated, whether they were 16 or 18 or whatever their age, they fell through the cracks. They were off the radar almost immediately. We'd see them 2 or 3 weeks after the emancipation process completed, and then all of a sudden, poof, they were gone. And so, because of that, I think we do have some really good programs now here starting to scaffold these kids so that they can make that transition. Foster Parent Association, we're not as active as we should be, and I think we're changing that. We are working with Holly and the folks to step up the recruitment and retention of foster parents. We do give scholarships out, and that certainly helps the students going to college or JC. That's a super advantage for them. But I think we have to do a lot more, and that's in changing the policy. And as I hear all these folks speak, I go, well, why didn't this happen? Why isn't that happening? And I think the reality is it's such a huge system to, not necessarily bureaucracy, but just every child has something different that they need from society, our community, and our community isn't supporting us. And so I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that we need to have some way of coordinating all these different agencies and things into a network for children as a transition to be able to connect. And I don't have an answer, but I'm certainly willing to help work on any of that. So if anybody out there has a great idea, or if there is a slot that needs to be taken to have that conversation, here's our information right here. And I also think that there are also kids who are in careers that also need to be asked about and surveyed to see what they also need. Thank you.
Well, Terry, I think that was great. It was no prompt at all, but I think that's really the purpose of today, is to really say who in the community is going to commit to this population. And I think if we get Terry that's interested in getting things together, if we get another person over here, it's really what it takes. It's really this village of the community. And I know we have the resources here. I know it's here because you guys are all here today. And I know that there's more people out there to really bring services and people and compassion together to help this population. I think the 4 that we have here today are amazing. I think they're examples of rising out of the foster care system. But there are others that struggle a lot more, and not to say that these 4 did not struggle, because they did, but how do we offer services to the collective population of foster youth? And our focus with IOP is older foster youth, but there's also a younger population as well. So how do we come together as a community and as a college to say this population matters? And that's why we have the buttons that you guys could wear that says that you commit to foster youth, and to be proud of that and to be able to share that information. So on the feedback cards is really what we're wanting to hear from you guys as a community. To take a minute to think about what do you have to offer. I think we've had many examples just from the youth today, but I know each and every one of us has something to offer. And we have many opportunities in this community that we need adults. We need supportive adults to mentor and support our youth population. We have a few representatives from the California Youth Connection, which is an advocacy group for current and former foster youth in San Luis Obispo County, which advocates for changes in the child welfare system at a local and state level. We have information in the back. We are always looking for adult supporters, people who want to work side by side with youth. We have a youth here from CYC that you could speak with if you're looking for more information. ILP has also been approached. Mission Community Bank has stepped forward, and they are willing to offer bank accounts to foster youth, which has been a barrier for us in the past because they need a co-signer. And unfortunately, that's sometimes the struggle that foster youth have, is identifying a co-signer. And so Mission Community Bank has removed some of those barriers for youth to be able to open bank accounts. So they have a certain account, there's not a minimum balance, they've kind of waived some of the fees. So those are the people in the community that I know are in this room just to step forward, and we can work together and brainstorm about what we can do. There was also another organization that contacted us, the Central Coast Women in Business. I see them here. And they really want to work with girls, young ladies, in our program and mentor them and find a way to create that relationship. So they're willing to host events for our young girls in our program to teach them skills. So these are the type of opportunities that I know our community has to offer. And like Terry said, we somehow need to get a network together where we can bring all these resources and commitment and love together to really support this population. That's my spiel. So really those, if you can fill out those feedback sheets, that's really what we're asking from you today by being here, is to really think about what you can do. On the resource or handout of who presented, we have the contact information of who spoke today. So there's many ways for us to get in contact with each other to make sure that we can make those connections. And like Tracy said earlier, we'll find a way to make it work. There's red tape here and there, but if you're committed and you want to help this population, we will find a way to make it work. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the youth especially for speaking and sharing with us. Oh yeah. And we're right at 2:30 on the dot, but if we do have any questions that anybody has. Okay, we got one right in front. So what suggestions could you provide me when I'm reaching out to foster youth about going to college? They tell me they are not interested. What might I say to motivate them? On the spot question. Okay.
I think the biggest motivation is realizing that you're so much better than how you were raised. Your past has nothing to do with what you're trying to do. So for me, that was the most important, is realizing that just because we grew up the way we did doesn't mean that I have to be like my mom or like my dad and have kids early and go downhill. Realizing that it's my life, it's nobody else's. It's my chance to do what I have to do to make money and have money in life and be successful. So my biggest thing would be probably just letting them know that it's their turn. It's nobody else's turn but theirs, and that they can do whatever they want, whether they want to own a restaurant or be a lawyer or something. They have any choice, and that there's people here willing to give them the opportunities to help them to just be successful, especially in this county. This county is amazing. So, yeah. Yes. I second that.
I think that it's really a shame for anybody not to go to college, especially foster youth who have where there's different things in place, like the Board of Governors grant that allows them to go, that subsidizes the classes, and I think it's a real shame when people don't go to college, but with all the opportunities, just laying out and making it possible, and showing that it is possible and they are able to do it, and it's really a big thing, and also just you have to believe in the power. You have to believe in the power of education and just how wonderful of a gift it is that we have that opportunity. So I think that's how I think.
Okay, I got one more here. I guess that's more not for the youth, but who do we contact, number, name, to mentor, tutor, or home for the holidays? So Tracy. Go to Tracy's house. There is Family Care Network, is a foster family agency in San Luis Obispo County that has a mentoring and tutoring program that they are always taking applicants. So Family Care Network is a resource for that. And then we're also kind of like the Central Coast Women in Business. We're looking for people in the community to identify themselves that that's something that they're wanting to do. So you can always contact myself as well, which my stuff is up on the screen. Home for the Holidays Call Social Services, 781-1700.
TAFAP and tutoring. I'm sorry. Marie Hughes is here. She's right there. You can talk to her.
I'm trying to get a clap going for her.
She's the one that approves all of our applications well, not approves, but takes in all of our applications. So every time I email her every month for rent, she receives it. She tells me how good I'm doing, and then she sends in the notice to get my rent check every single month for the past year, 2 years. So thank you.
She's an incredible help. I mean, I don't know how many times I've emailed her with kind of ridiculous questions to me, and she's just absolutely supportive in every way. So thank you.
So real quick, for you guys that don't know, TAFAP is the Transitional Age Youth Financial Assistance Program, and that's a program that was started specifically in San Luis Obispo County by Tracy Shiro and Family Care Network partnering together to say that education matters for foster youth and to really provide that financial assistance that youth need to be able to go to college. And our youth were choosing not to go to school because they had to work and they had bills and they needed to provide for themselves because they didn't have the parental support to help them. And so she worked together to create this wonderful program that helps with rent, food, transportation, gas, books. I mean, really anything that it takes for a student to be successful in college, youth can submit an application for TAFAP, and Marie is wonderful. Tracy approves them, and it's been going on 2 years now, and it's been a great success. And Luke wants to add one last thing.
Yes, one last thing to the college question. I believe that for me personally, Miss Lisa Allardyce, she has done an incredible job in helping me with lining up my college and then also my what my career would be after that. Make sure everything's planned out, especially from the transition from community college to a four-year university. So just if you could get them to meet with her, she's really great at that. She's good, good at what she does. So I think that's good.
That's another great example of somebody identifying themselves in the community, saying, you know, this is information, this is knowledge that I have, and I want to be able to share it with foster youth. And Tracy helped with that connection to make that a possibility, that our youth can go to four-year universities. It is possible. Jess is about to graduate from Cal Poly. So thank you all for coming. Just another plug, Vanessa Deffenbaugh is speaking tonight from 5 to 7 at the Cuesta College PAC for the author lecture. Thank you so much.
Oh my.